First up, let's talk about Catenaccio, the Italian word for door bolt. This system is all about defense, and more defense. It was popularized in the 1960s by Inter Milan's legendary coach, Helanio Herrera, although its roots go back to Austrian coach Karl Rappan in the 1930s. So, what is it? Catenaccio is a highly organized defensive system. The key innovation was the role of the libero or sweeper. This is a free defender who plays behind the main defensive line, whose job is to sweep up any loose balls and tackle any attacker who breaks through. In front of the libero, you'd typically have 3 or 4 man-marking defenders, each assigned to a specific opponent. The midfield and attack were then tasked with hitting the opposition on a swift, deadly counterattack. Why was it used? It was designed to nullify technically superior attacking teams. By packing the defense and being incredibly disciplined, a weaker team could frustrate a stronger one and snatch a 1-0 win. It was a pragmatic approach, prioritizing, not conceding over scoring lots of goals. While some called it anti-football, you can't argue with its effectiveness. Herrera's Inter Milan, known as Grande Inter, used it to win back-to-back European Cups. Even today, you see elements of Catenaccio when a team is trying to protect a narrow lead in the dying minutes of a match. Now, let's travel from Italy to the Netherlands for a complete philosophical shift. Total football. This revolutionary concept, brought to life by the genius coach Rinus Michels and his on-field general Johan Cruyff at Ajax and the Dutch national team in the 1970s, was the polar opposite of Catenaccio. So, how did total football work? The core idea is that any outfield player can take over the role of any other player in the team. A defender could suddenly pop up on the wing, a midfielder could drop into defense, and a forward could track back to make a tackle. This created a fluid, dynamic system where players were constantly interchanging positions. The system relied on players being technically gifted, intelligent, and incredibly fit. The shape, often a 4-3-3, was just a starting point. The real magic was in the movement and spatial awareness. They also perfected the offside trap, with the whole defensive line moving up in unison to catch attackers offside. Why was it so revolutionary? It was all about controlling space. By constantly moving and swapping positions, they created overloads all over the pitch, making them almost impossible to mark. It was proactive, beautiful to watch, and incredibly effective. Total football laid the groundwork for the modern possession-based game. It wasn't just a tactic, it was an ideology that proved attacking, attractive football could also be winning football. From the fluidity of total football, we arrive at Arrigo Sacchi's AC Milan in the late 1980s and early 90s. Sacchi, built on the Dutch philosophy, but added his own brand of Italian organization and intensity. His system was all about compactness and pressing. What did Sacchi do? He famously drilled his team without a ball, just to perfect their positioning and movement as a single, cohesive unit. His Milan side played a high defensive line, squeezing the pitch and reducing the space the opposition had to play in. The key was the 25-meter rule. Sacchi wanted no more than 25 meters between his last defender and his highest attacker. When they lost the ball, they would press relentlessly as a group to win it back immediately. This coordinated pressure was something new and suffocated opponents. Why was this so dominant? Sacchi's Milan was a perfectly oiled machine. They combined the Dutch concept of a high line and pressing with Italian defensive discipline. They didn't mark, they defended zonally, controlling space rather than individual players. This required immense intelligence and coordination from players like Baresi, Maldini and Ancelotti. They dominated European football, winning back-to-back European Cups, and their principles of pressing and compactness are fundamental to almost every top team in the world today. Now, let us fast forward to the 21st century and talk about a tactic that defined an era, tiki-taka. While the principles have roots in Cruyff's total football, it was perfected by Pep Guardiola, first with Barcelona and later with Bayern Munich and Manchester City. What exactly is tiki-taka? At its heart, it's a style based on short passing and movement, working the ball through various channels, and maintaining possession. The idea is to starve the opposition of the ball. The ball moves constantly, with players forming triangles all over the pitch to ensure there are always passing options. It's patient, methodical, and designed to pull the opposition out of shape, creating gaps for a killer pass. Players like Xavi, Iniesta, and Messi were the masters of this art form. Why did it work so well? Let the ball do the work. By keeping the ball, you control the game. You tire out the opposition, who are forced to chase shadows. It's both an attacking and a defensive strategy. If the other team doesn't have the ball, they can't score. Finally, let us look at a more defensive counter-tactic that has caused even the best teams problems: parking the bus. The phrase was famously coined by Jose Mourinho back in 2004 when describing a defensive Tottenham side. He then went on to become the master of this very strategy. So, how do you park the bus? It's an ultra-defensive approach, an evolution of Catenaccio for the modern game. The entire team, sometimes even the attackers, drops deep into their own defensive third. They form two low, compact banks of 4 or 5, leaving very little space between the lines or behind the defense for attackers to run into. The aim is to clog up the penalty area, block shots, and make it physically impossible for the opposition to find a way through. The team then relies on long clearances or a quick break from a lone striker to maybe, just maybe, nick a goal. When and why is it used? It's the ultimate tactic for an underdog. When a team faces a vastly superior opponent, parking the bus can be their only hope of getting a result. It's about frustration, discipline, and organization. Mourinho famously used it with Inter Milan to knock out Guardiola's Barcelona in the 2010 Champions League semi-finals, despite playing with 10 men for over an hour. It may not be pretty, but it can be brutally effective in neutralizing a more talented team. And there you have it, a whirlwind tour of some of football's most iconic tactics. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content.